Here is how I make an infinity scarf on my 48 needle circular knitting machine. So first thing you're going to do is yarn on with a waste yarn. This is a similar weighted yarn that you can use, but in a contrasting color from your project yarn. And you're going to do this over and under each needle one time around, and I start with my white needle. Once you go one time around, you want to put it all the way down in your yarn holder and then into your yarn tensioner. And then you're going to do between 5 and 6 rows of your waste yarn. Next, you're going to take your project yarn and put it on the machine. When you're changing colors, make sure you have it all the way down, seated into that yarn holder so the needles catch it. And then now we're going to start working on our project rows. For this scarf, I ended up doing 226 rows, and this was just when my yarn ran out. And so that's what's really nice about infinity scarves is you can kind of do as many rows as you want. If you do less rows, you can even do a cowl making this, or you can do more rows and make it a longer infinity scarf. This is a number 4 medium weight yarn, and I do feel on this one it's a tweed yarn. It's really important to have good tension. It needs tighter tension than more thinner yarn since it's a slightly thicker one, and I will hold it sometimes with my hand to help make that tension consistent. Once you're done, you're going to put your project yarn in the middle, and then you're going to finish up using more waste yarn, again just in a contrasting color to your project yarn. It's also good to use a similar weight yarn, and then I do again between 5 and 6 rows all the way around, and then you are just going to let it drop off your machine. So I just let my waste yarn run out and then crank it around 2 times and it will drop off the machine. If you use multiple skeins of yarn, you want to secure any of those ends together with a knot and then turn your project right side out. And now we're going to slip stitch our rounds together, or the tubes, I should say. So what I like to do is put the tail ends of the working yarn and the waste yarn at the bottom towards me. And this is so I can make sure that my project isn't twisted when I put the 2 sides together, because we're going to slip stitch the 2 tubes together in the round as well. So now I'm lining up those ends, those tail ends of the tube, and you're going to see you have your waste yarn and then you have your first row of your project yarn in the stitches, and those are the live stitches that we are going to pick up and slip stitch together to make it a infinity scarf in the round. So there's how I have it with the tail ends together, and this is so it's even. And then I take my crochet hook and I pick up 1 stitch or 1 loop on either side of the tube, and then we slip stitch one into the other, and then we go back and forth all the way down our tube until you complete the round. When you get to the tail ends of your yarn, you will slip stitch in the project yarn of your one tail, because you'll come to that first and you'll still have a few more stitches to go around. So you will slip stitch that in and just kind of hold it, and then you just skip the tail end of the waste yarn, because the waste yarn is going to be removed. So you work this all the way around, and you just want to make sure you don't skip any of the live stitches of the project yarn, because once you remove the waste yarn, if they're not picked up, it will unravel the project. So that's why it's really good to have a high contrasting color so you can see that first row of your project yarn live stitches. It will twist a little bit as you're going around, so you'll just take your time to do that and move it. And now when we get to this last little opening where the tail ends are, I get to my first tail end right here, and you're just going to take it with your hand and do a slip stitch and kind of hold the tension with your hand as you do the second slip stitch. So there's one, and then if you need to, you can kind of hold it to keep it tight. And now we're just going to slip stitch another one, and then keep working down all the slip stitches or all the loops to make sure you pick them up. And I try to end on the other tail end of the working yarn. And then once you just have that last loop on your hook, pull through the tail end of the project yarn through the loop, and that secures everything into place. And then you just kind of want to be careful in that area to make sure you get all the stitches. Sometimes some can be hiding. And then a good way to know if you've got all the stitches, if you look and you see kind of a little hole, you want to make sure you grab that if it looks like a stitch hasn't been done. Next, I just take my needle, and then I'm going to do a knot to secure down the tail ends of our yarn. So I'm just grabbing a loop, and then just making a knot to secure it so it doesn't fall out. And then I'm just making sure I grabbed all my stitches. And then I'm just doing a knot for the other tail end, working it through. To secure it in place. And now we're going to remove our waste yarn. To remove the waste yarn, you have your cast on waste yarn, and this one's the more difficult one to remove. So because if you pull on the end of that tail yarn, it's locked into place. So you just want to feed out the first round of it, and then once it's unlocked, then you can just pull it really easily and it comes off of your stitches. So just be kind of patient with that first one. And then the one where you did the cast off, we just let it fall off the machine. So just grab the end of the tail yarn and it comes right out. So now that we have the waste yarn done, you will just have like kind of two little holes where we connected the two tubes together. And I just take the tail end of my project yarns and I kind of weave it in and around just so it kind of looks seamless to block up those two little holes. And that just takes some time and finesse on how you want it to look. And then once done, you can knot it and weave in your ends and then cut off any excess. And then your infinity scarf is done. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and follow for more tutorials.